Many thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I know that all of you know how to take consent for clinical procedures and have years of experience in doing so, and that all of you understand the fundamental importance of obtaining properly informed consent for a clinical trial. But despite this, a recent audit of consent for clinical trials within our trust has identified a number of significant errors with consent across a wide range of different trials. These have even included instances where there was no written evidence that a trial participant had ever gone through the consent process, though most were due to silly omissions. Whilst these cases are being investigated by the MHRA, I thought it would be a timely opportunity to highlight the main differences between consent for a clinical trial and consent for a clinical procedure. There are important differences, many of which may seem trivial, but which may make the difference between a serious breach of GCP and a properly conducted consent process. So let's look at some of the common mistakes. Firstly, any trial-related screening activities can only be undertaken after consent has been given. Whilst you may be trying to be helpful, you cannot complete any part of the form on behalf of the patient. This will even include filling out the date or writing their name in capitals for them. And unlike clinical consent, you need to document eligibility and the consent process in the notes. This means explicitly writing that the patient has been provided with the patient information sheet and given adequate time to read it and the opportunity to ask questions. You need to write in full in the notes that the patient meets the inclusion criteria and has none of the exclusion criteria and is therefore eligible for entry into the name of the trial and to include the protocol version number. And with this comes that the patient will also need to be reconsented if there is a change in the protocol or other important amendments, particularly if there's a change in the safety information of the trial drug. When this is done, it's vital that the correct versions of the consent form and patient information sheets are used. You cannot simply cross out and write in the updated number on an old form, and these new forms then have to be filed in the notes. These are all legal requirements, and without them the consent may be invalid. It is your responsibility to know the approved consent process for your trial, and even if consent is taken by someone else, ensuring that it is done correctly remains your responsibility as the trial investigator. These responsibilities are detailed in the ICH GCP guide under section 4.8, and you may find it helpful to look at this section again. So, to summarise, informed consent is about people's understanding and willingness to participate in your study, having been told the purpose, the procedures, the potential risks, and the benefits of their involvement, and the alternatives to participation. Obtaining a signature on a consent document is important, but it is just one step in the continuous process of informed consent. There is a lot more to be recorded, and it is your responsibility to ensure that it is done right for every patient, every time. There will be additional training materials available from the QA and governance team to help you get consent right, every time. Thank you for taking the time to listen.